You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
All right, Black and White Sports supporters, we're going to talk about the Atlanta Falcons because a scathing report has come out involving the Falcons. They've made some front office changes. McKay, stripped of his title. He's been moved out of football operations. My question is, if McKay was the issue between Bill Belichick and the Falcons, why in the world are you still making this change if you're not going to hire Bill Belichick? My biggest problem with them not hiring Belichick or Vrabel or Harbaugh, of course Harbaugh's a Charger now, is the fact that you set these expectations. That is my issue with the Raheem Morris hire. You raise the expectations for Atlanta, for the city, that you're getting the 6-time Super Bowl champion coach, with rumors going all the way back to November, and then you pivot and hire a coach that is basically just Dan Quinn and Mike Smith all over again. A guy you could have hired after Dan Quinn was gone. He was the interim coach. You didn't do it. And some people the first comment yesterday was, I made this about race, or this was about race. That is the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard in my life. But there is no world in which you can compare Raheem Morris and Bill Belichick's resumes. That argument is shut. I mean, that's ridiculous. Now, far as just coaching prowess goes, if you set aside the bogus lawsuit that Brian Flores has got going on, I would have hired Brian Flores before I hired Raheem Morris. If you're talking about just pure coaching results and track record. Well, Brian Flores is black. I mean, I'm just keeping it real. I think that lawsuit he's got against the NFL is absurd. But I do believe the guy can coach, too. I just think this is another one of these coordinator rehash hires, and I hate those kind of hires. Seattle is probably about to hire Dan Quinn. I think that is about to be one of the dumbest decisions in the history of the planet. Just dumb. You're going to turn around and give Dan Quinn another head coaching job. Man, this really worked out for Wade Phillips and for Rex Ryan and for Norv Turner, all these rehashed, reused coordinator situations. And let's be honest, Rex Ryan actually had some success, and so did Wade Phillips. But none of them delivered a Super Bowl ring. Is that the real goal here? Let's get to this. Wow. Let's get to this. Arthur Blank is panicking in total disarray over Falcons head coaching search. And I'm going to tell you what it sounds like happened here. It sounds like he had chosen Belichick. All hell broke loose behind the scenes. And he literally just said, let's just hire Raheem Morris. That's what it sounds like. Personally speaking, if you weren't going to get one of these top-notch defensive guys like Vrabel or like Belichick, then I would have pivoted full offense. And I'd have hired Dave Canales, who got hired by the Panthers, or Bobby Slowick. At least hire an offensive guy from the Shanahan and McVay tree. No, you didn't do that either. I don't think this coaching hire is going to work. All right? So here we go. Before the Falcons even parted ways with Arthur Smith, there were murmurs that Arthur Blank was intrigued with the idea of bringing Bill Belichick in to replace him. That was even before the Patriots and Belichick went their separate ways. Once both sides were available, national pundits, one by one, reported that Belichick was Blank's top target. At one point, it was basically assumed that Bill Belichick would be named the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. If you looked at the sports books last Friday morning, it was like a mortal lock. It was like a mortal lock. He was about to be named the head coach. As of yesterday, they satisfied the Rooney Rule and are free to hire whoever the coach can coach whichever coach they please without penalties, but they haven't. Most recently, Adam Schefter went as far as to say on Get Up that Belichick shouldn't be considered the favorite. Considering the Falcons only expanded their search, interviewing a dozen candidates, with half of them already interviewed twice or scheduled to. Again, this came out right before the hire was named. That's quite a turn of events from the beginning of the process. So what happened between them? Well, there's clearly an internal power struggle going on with the Falcons organization. Albert Breer pointed out on the Rich Eisen show that organizational structure component to bringing Bill Belichick into the fold with Rich McKay and Terry Fontenot could be a holdup. That's exactly what happened here. To add even more context to the situation, Zach Klein recently expanded on the situation with Brian Barrett on the Off the Pike podcast. Klein went as far as to say Belichick would 1,000% not be reporting to Arthur Blank via Rich McKay every single Monday after a game. Klein said that Blank has met with his head coaches every single Monday for the entirety of his tenure as Falcons owner, and as he's aged, his confidant, McKay, has acted as a liaison of sorts. None of this is new information. The organizational structure with Belichick and McKay was always thought to be a hurdle that Blank would eventually have to get over. However, Klein did have something to add that was jarring. His sources around the league say Arthur Blank is, quote, panicking, in total disarray, doesn't know what to do. That's exactly what this hire feels like. Chaos. He literally panicked and just picked a guy. That's what happened here, I can tell you. Quote, I've heard from so many people around the league that Arthur Blank is panicking, in total disarray, doesn't know what to do, the Atlanta-based reporter told Brian Barrett on the Off the Pike podcast. Before that statement, Klein brought up Belichick working in Atlanta for 3 years or so and how he could impact the front office personnel, rhetorically asking if that's what Blank wants. Klein added Blank wants Belichick but doesn't want everything that comes with him. Arthur wants to have his cake and eat it too, which doesn't seem possible with Belichick, Rich McKay, and this Falcons head coaching search. He seems to be struggling with a decision. That's crazy. So the whole thing, you know how we are on this channel. We're pretty raw. The whole thing was a shit show behind the scenes. And Rich McKay jacked this up. You went from Mike Smith. Let me see if I can remember this right. Mike Smith to Dan Quinn to Arthur Smith to Raheem Morris. Is there a difference between any of those four guys at all? I mean, I'm just wondering because they all feel exactly the same. It's crazy. It's crazy. And word has it you wanted a big time head coach. No, Raheem Morris is not that guy. Falcons make cosmetic changes to Rich McKay's title and official duties. So this came out after the fact. Florio put this out, and this came out Thursday night. Owner Arthur Blank announced on Thursday night that McKay will, quote, exit day-to-day football operations with the team. The same thing occurred with hiring of GM Thomas Dimitroff and coach Mike Smith, when McKay's primary duties became working on the construction of the team's current stadium. After the stadium was finished, McKay gradually re-entered football operation. Most recently, both head coach and general manager reported to McKay. Now McKay will exit the football side and return to the business side while taking control of Blank's MLS team. Quote, as CEO of AMBSE, McKay oversees the business operations of the Atlanta Falcons, Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and shared services functions that support the entire portfolio, the team said in a press release. In the coming weeks, he will add direct oversight of Atlanta United, with its CEO Garth Lagerwey reporting directly to him. He'll also join the Arthur M. Blank Family Foundation Board as an associate director. AMB SE President Tim Zulawski and Falcons President Greg Beatles, as well as senior leaders of AMB SE's shared services, which will continue to report to him. The move continues to give McKay considerable authority while allowing him to avoid the normal accountability that comes with direct and conspicuous involvement in football operations. For most NFL teams, those are the folks who are at risk of termination if the football operations are deemed to be not deemed to be sufficiently thriving. In other words, it's a shit show, right? All right, and Raheem Morris and GM Terry Fontenot will now report directly to Arthur Blank. What he's done is he's moved McKay into a different title because as the football operations is a dumpster fire, McKay can keep his job. What does McKay have on Arthur Blank? I mean, you got some photos or something nobody knows about? Because this looks ridiculous. If you were going to make this move, why not make the move and hire Bill Belichick? If that was the real problem. Wow. Wow, the change for McKay ultimately appears to be a distinction without a difference. As one source explained it to PFT, McKay wasn't heavily involved in day-to-day football operations anyway. He essentially bounced around the various facilities under the AMBSE umbrella, meeting with leaders of football operations roughly once a week and receiving updates from the coach and GM via a text chain that included Blank. It appears, and quote, appears seems to be the key word. There was a degree of sensitivity to the McKay versus Belichick storyline that had emerged since Belichick landed on the Falcons' radar screen. If, as a practical matter, McKay didn't have as much involvement in day-to-day operations, it made more sense to officially extricate him from that capacity to avoid questions and scrutiny over his responsibility and lack of accountability for any and all perceived or actual failures of the football team. In the end, the only person deemed accountable for perceived or actual failures of the last 3 seasons was Smith. Fontenot remains in place, and McKay slides to official duties and titles that better reflect the realities of his overall job with the organization. That job, nevertheless, includes constantly talking to Blank about everything within all Blank's businesses. Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. So, still, McKay avoided being frozen out completely of anything and everything regarding the football team, which Belichick presumably would have wanted if he had gotten the job. While Blank surely wouldn't have fired McKay to get Belichick, Blank likely would have had to promise Belichick that he would never have to deal with McKay directly or indirectly, daily or weekly, now or ever. So it seems like Belichick wanted nothing to do with Rich McKay. And considering it sounds like Rich McKay's got his grubby hands in every little piece of anything the Falcons got going on, I don't blame him. That sounds like a total shit show behind the scenes. Like a clown show. It's just a nightmare. One person doesn't know what the other person's doing, and it's in such disarray, as it was called, that you lost the greatest coach of all time. That's crazy. Now, I do wonder one thing. If Belichick knew this was going this way, would Belichick have told Philadelphia and Dallas that he wasn't interested? No thanks, particularly Dallas. Because that's what happened here. Belichick cost himself a job as a head coach. Because I do think, especially in Dallas, and it came out that Belichick told a couple of major market teams he didn't want to deal with the media in their areas. Because 2 teams reached out to him. And it's felt that it was Philadelphia and Dallas. And, of course, Dallas came out publicly and said, we're keeping Mike McCarthy. the Eagles, I think very smartly, never said one way or the other that they were keeping Sirianni. That you can see that that's what's happening with all their firings. They got Vic Fangio. That was a great move at defensive coordinator. A great move. But you have to wonder, would Belichick have went that route, or would he have been like, yeah, I'm going to Dallas? I think he turned away Dallas thinking he had this job. And everybody thought he had this job. Wow. It's crazy, but look. This is my point to everything. This feels exactly like something that would have happened with Arizona, with Cleveland, with the New York Jets, Carolina Panthers. All these organizations that have absurd, ludicrous owners is in total flux and chaos all the time. And I actually didn't think Atlanta was one of those places. Yeah, it is. That's exactly what it is. Wow. Wow. And I'm sorry, you don't hire your head coaches based on culture fits or some crap like that. Who's the most qualified? You're going to tell me Bill Belichick isn't more qualified than Raheem Morris. You have no argument there. Stop it. 6 Super Bowl rings versus a former failed head coach. And I do think Raheem Morris deserved a shot, but not over Bill Belichick. I mean, yeah, if you only had the standard operating coordinators in the running across the league, fine. But you had Jim Harbaugh, you had Pete Carroll, you have Mike Vrabel, you have Bill Belichick. You don't pass on any of the 4 of those guys for Raheem Morris. I'm sorry, you just don't. If Mike Tomlin would have wiggled away from the Steelers, you could have put him in that too. I mean, all these teams should have been chasing these guys. I don't know. It's crazy. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.